Hello, everybody. Stay tuned. We got a special episode of I Plead the First with a very special guest. It's a little bit of a long episode, but you're going to want to watch the whole thing. I'll catch you on the other side. Hello, everybody. Welcome to I Plead the First. Today, I have a very special guest. His name is James L Wright II. James, say hi.
It's very specific. And hi, how's everybody doing?
Does the L stand for Leangelo?
Pretty close. First few letters.
What's up, man? It's good to see you. I haven't seen you since you retired and got the hell out of Omaha.
Yeah, it's feels like it hasn't been that long, but it's been a year and about a month already. So
yeah.
But it's been a crazy year too with all the Rona stuff. And
you got the hell out of here like right before the Rona hit. You're like, here, Mesa, take over. And then bam, you're screwed, Mesa.
Pretty much. It was the one time in my life where I beat something for once instead of getting caught in the end of it.
I got all excited. I was like, oh, cool, man. I'm going to be the superintendent for like a year. I'm going to just make whatever changes I feel like it. I'm going to document them. I'm going to make sure they're in the regulations so that nobody can change them after me. I'm going to do all kinds of good stuff. This is going to be great. And like a couple weeks later, the commander calls me down to the office. He's like, hey, Joe, get your stuff and go home. You're immunocompromised. I know the medicine you're on. I want you to be at home.
It was also cool in its own way.
Yeah. I mean, he was just taking care of me, and I appreciate that. But it was also frustrating because we spent a lot of time at home doing Zoom meetings like you and I are doing right now.
Yeah, I remember you discussing those and kind of how frustrating they could be because you couldn't do things and talk to people and choke people in person like you used to like to do in meetings.
Yeah, I don't have the same presence on video as I do in person. So I can't stare people down and pull my normal stuff. And of course, at the end, I mean, you're not doing that to the people that work for you. You're doing it to the people that are outside the organization that are trying to get over on your people.
Yep. Yep. It's always a battle to take care of your people, and then it depends. Most of the time, they don't care.
Yeah. I think probably the last commander staff meeting I was in, I don't even remember what it was about, but I was sitting at the table, maybe 2 chairs down from the commander. And, I think it was building. I think they were talking about moving back to our old building. Back to the Benny Davis building. And I know exactly what it was talking about. It was what we used to call the black hole. Do you remember that room?
Yep.
So for the audience, the black hole was this gigantic room that James and I had fought for because we needed extra space for our people. And we had fought for it since, what would you say, 2013?
Yeah. It was many black hole discussions over many years.
Right. So the people that owned it had the audacity to actually put the black hole on the door because they just threw stuff in there and left it. Yeah. And we made the argument of like, look, they don't care about this place. Can we just have it? Because we actually need it. Anyway, so I'm sitting in that meeting, like 2 seats down from the commander, and he proceeds to announce that crew comm and the dudes with the iPads, you remember what I'm talking about?
Mm.
They got the black hole.
Yeah.
I proceeded to lose my mind without saying a word. Like I was just sitting over there turning bright red, like not saying a word. And the commander goes, Joe, are you okay? No, sir, I'm not. He's like, what's wrong? He's like, I was like, dude, you know what's wrong, sir? Like, not the place.
Yeah.
We had a discussion after the meeting. He was like, sorry, this was what was going into it, which we ended up winning, and we ended up getting that room, at least for a temporary
Oh
use.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I lost track. I really took a brain dump of everything military for a long time. So
Yeah, man. I actually hadn't thought about much of any of that stuff until just now when I was telling you that story.
yeah.
I'm forgetting like terminology and all the brevity codes and all that stuff. Like I don't know.
It brings a tear to your eye.
It does, man. I probably
Never
couldn't
been
even
so
tell you
happy.
what I couldn't tell you what POL stands for anymore.
Yeah, I have no idea. I've never been so happy forgetting stuff. I mean, usually I'm frustrated, like, "God, I can't remember."
Yeah. So for the audience here, you're we worked together for a very long time. We worked together since 2006. Is that
Yep.
when you got to Beal?
7. Yeah.
2007. Okay.
Very
So
early 7, so your memory's not too
okay, yeah.
long.
So I must have been, oh, that was a busy time in my life. I must have been just returning from my 2006 deployment. Yeah, because I remember the first time I met you, you were hanging out at the door and nobody would let you
Yeah.
in. Yeah, I
Yep.
remember that. Yeah. Um, and then I deployed again that June, and then again like a couple months later. So we didn't really get to know each other all that well, really, until we had got PCS'd and stationed at Offutt together.
Yep.
So then we worked together for a long time, and um, we were in different separate leadership roles all over the flight, working together, doing all kinds of stuff like that.
Mhm.
But you are also my YouTube mentor because you have
Yeah.
your large YouTube channel over there where you work on model trains and stuff. And I used to give you crap about that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's still kind of nichey, or very nichey, but it's something to do.
How'd you get into that, man? Can you tell them the story?
Yeah. So my cousin, when I was actually in California, he got me a little NASA train set. I was like, okay, he sent me this stuff. And even then in 2009, it was pretty complicated. It had computer parts and computer components and like systems where you would send different computer program signals to the chip inside the train. And I didn't know what I was doing. So I just threw it on the shelf. And he came out for a visit and he kind of showed me more about it. And I noticed that nobody was doing product reviews on the stuff. I had a couple contacts in California that did product reviews on cars at the time, and kind of friends of a friends through hiking groups and stuff. So I was like, nobody's doing product reviews.
Whoa, wait a minute. Hold on. I have known you for the better part of 2 decades. You are a member of hiking groups?
Yeah. Oh, you got to remember, go back and look at my 2009 video. I was actually in shape.
True.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't know. I didn't know you even liked hiking, man. Where'd you go? Like out to Beal Falls and stuff like that?
I never did like hiking. It was more my wife, but
Copy that.
I did stay in shape, even though I hated staying in shape. So yeah, we basically, I noticed nobody's doing product reviews similar to what you see on CNET and stuff like that for cars. So I just started doing product reviews, and then the company started sending stuff, and we still mix it up where there's like discount deals and there's sponsorships, and I do hobby show coverage, which they pay me to go out there and cover hobby shows, stuff like that. And then the YouTube channel has about 20 million views or something like that, 25 million views. I don't really pay attention to it much.
That's a hell of a thing not to pay attention to when you get that many views. A lot of people would kill for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Then it's weird because it's niche. I'm like, man, if I would have picked something else, but to be honest, if I would have picked something else, I mean, the things I've seen over my 11, 12 years in YouTube, I thought maybe I wish I picked guns, but now, YouTube's being all ridiculous and banning any advertisements on guns. You can't. I don't know how much they've enforced it, but they've really hurt the gun hobby on YouTube. And then toys, I was watching these morons like playing with toys, like making stupid noises and stuff, like and kids are watching it.
It's kind of creepy and strange, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a grown 54-year-old hairy dude playing with like Legos and like making stupid noises and making stupid storylines and getting millions of views, and it was frankly pissing me off. But then YouTube put the kibosh on that, and now they can't have ads for most of some of them are still doing it, but the Federal Trade Commission said that children can't be used for that, or children's stuff can't be used for that. I can't remember. I read
it's because the video is intended for children, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so,
because now YouTube asks you that when you upload the video, is this video intended for a child, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now those guys are on the way to being broke. So I'm like, oh, maybe this little hobby thing wasn't too bad. It's still chugging along.
Longevity for sure.
Yeah, you need a big like model display, which I don't have right now because I'm going to battle to find a house because, for the first time in history, of course, when I retire, the Corona comes around and the economy tanks, but yet the housing market stays afloat. So.
Oh, you mean that dope mountain home with the snow in the background isn't your actual house?
No, that would be a back a drop. So.
Looks great though, man.
Yep. So I'm looking for a house. I'm in a couple 1,000 square foot rental right now, which is majorly downsized for us. But I'm just not going to settle because this is my last move. Military life, we've moved so many times we can't count. I'm tired of it, so I'm taking my time. It's got enough space to be comfortable. We've got some stuff like stored in boxes still in the garage. So,
because your next home is hopefully your forever home, right?
Right. They better pull me out of their debt. I might have to take it down a wall to do it, depending on how much weight I gain.
So we used to suffer through the strains of staying in shape together because we love food, both of us.
Yeah.
And I think we knew just about every restaurant in Omaha. And then we would go torture ourselves in the gym and diets and all that stuff to stay within the standards, which we made it. We're done.
Yeah. I used to call my cousin, who's pretty rotund. And I would like
Christopher.
Yeah. I would brag about all the crap I ate the day after my fitness test.
Dude, I have a picture somewhere.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember that picture?
The buffet of like multiple different restaurants.
Oh, it was so stupid, man. I was on like a stupid diet. Dropped a ton of weight. Was like, I was in really good shape actually for that PT test. And like, I just wasn't eating anything that I enjoyed. It was awful. And that night me and my girlfriend went out and we went up to the town nearby us, and we went to Casey's and got pizza, which if you're not in the Midwest, Casey's is a gas station that also makes, like, no kidding, legitimate pizza. It's really good pizza. We also went to Little Caesars and got pizza. We went to Taco Bell and got a party pack. We went to Burger King and got like the little dollar menu bacon cheeseburgers. We went somewhere else too, man. It was like 5 or 6 things. It was stupid. Yeah. Of course I couldn't eat all that, but I tried a little bit of all of it.
And that's the thing, right? So you go through all that, you get in shape, and then your stomach shrinks, and then you go to party, and it's like, oh, I've had 2 tacos, I'm done.
I'm pretty sure I did more than 2 tacos that night.
Yeah. Or it's just sitting right here in your esophagus. Even belch, it's gone. It's coming out.
Yeah. I think actually, now that you say that, I think I may have actually vomited that night. If I can find that picture while I'm editing this this video, I will put it up here for the people to see. It is a stupid display of food.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was if you can top me, then you're pretty impressive. I tear up some food anyway. But on a PT test day, it was almost unmeasurable until you came along.
Yeah, man. And a couple of times we did our PT test together, and then we would go up and get breakfast at the breakfast restaurant out in the country.
Yeah. We even took a PT test together in California, where this guy told me to run faster when I was perfectly in time, and I flipped him off as I passed.
Yeah, I remember that. His name will keep him nameless.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm running fine. I've got my own time right here. I'm good, man.
Oh, that guy, man. He was an interesting dude.
Probably going to be an E9 someday.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. For the longest time, I thought he was one of those like misunderstood dudes. Like he kind of really did mean well, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell with some of these people, man. Like they just, I don't know. Like you said, there's kind of a type that you can look at him and be like, oh, he'll be an E9. And for those of you that are not around the military, generally speaking, when you hear people say that, it's usually, unfortunately, not a compliment.
Right.
If you know that somebody is going to make E9, it means they're not willing to take any risk for their people. They're not willing to push back at all.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just kind of what civilians would call a company man.
Yeah. And they're not usually there to begin with. They're out doing all this stuff.
Ooh, that's an interesting topic we could talk about on here that I've never really brought up to people, is the games that we play for promotions.
Oh yeah.
So you alluded to it. A lot of people that are chasing that rank will not be at their job doing their assigned duties. They're off doing some extracurricular activity, volunteer work, stuff like that, right?
Yep. Yeah, and many times I was kind of left with the football in hand, sometimes willingly, because it was just better to get it out of the way, know that that's what they're going to do, and just kind of take care of the people and the mission and the job. But yeah, we'd end up kind of stuck with with the with the items. I remember one time you had to come chase me down.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
You had to come chase me down because I ended up getting brought into, or maybe I just wanted to fill a line on a performance report. I ended up on one of those volunteer things at the same time as the next guy that was in the office. So you had to come chase both of us down at a volunteer event.
I was not happy that day. Do you remember my face when I walked in there?
Oh yeah, you weren't happy, and I felt bad because, as you know, I wasn't a politician, but you still have to kind of fill the lines on the performance report and kind of get something pushed.
Oh, for sure. I wasn't upset with you. You know who I was mad at.
Yeah. Well, I think it was the time of the year where I'm like, oh crap, I haven't done anything all year up this politician alley, so I got to go do this and this to at least get it, pushed through. So.
Yeah, you guys were over and you were doing what they like to call a professional development course or something like that, right?
Yeah, I think it was a speed dating, but it was like speed professional development.
It was speed mentoring. Now that you say that, yeah. What a bunch of corny bullshit, man.
Well, when you think about an organization sitting around with its top leadership thinking of stupid stuff to do to get promoted,
yeah,
that tells you how effective that organization is going to be, and you're kind of seeing it play out in some branches of the military.
Yeah.
My sister's saying the Navy's kind of going the same way. I don't know where this idea came from, but it's terrible. It would never fly. Now that I'm on the civilian side at an upper level management job, I can tell you that if I said I was going to go build Habitat for Humanity houses, it'd be like, cool. Are you taking your vacation time to do that? And I need to, So, because
Right.
we kind of need this, and this done for the company, so.
Yeah, unless it was like a planned company thing that you were doing as a company, right? Like I
Right.
could see my company going and taking a day and saying, hey, we're going to go over and work at the Habitat for Humanity for a day as the company. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
could not go in there and be like, hey, boss, I know we got some really important clients that are about to come in and you probably need me on the phone, but I really need to fill out my volunteer section of my performance report. So I'm going to be over at the Habitat for Humanity.
Yeah. And in 3 months on my civilian job, I got a raise and a promotion based on kicking ass and taking names and making company financials hum. And that's all they care about. They don't care about this other stuff. And the military really should focus more on,
Killing
target.
people and breaking their shit.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was trying to find a professional way. Target acquisition and
Elimination.
demolition of assets of foreign powers.
Ladies and gentlemen, the United States military's sole purpose in the world is to kill people and break their shit. If that
Yeah,
hurts your feelings, then you need to take a hard look at your understanding of what that force is there for.
but I'm afraid it's wandering just way too far from that. I think in a matter of a couple of left leaning, severely left leaning regimes, or as they would call administrations, we're going to end up being like, you know, third, fourth in the world, at a minimum second. China's already got the largest navy as of, I think, late last year, early this year.
Yeah, China's an issue. I also, before we move on with this conversation, because I like where it's going, but I feel the need to clarify to civilians that maybe just don't understand that, because pretty much everyone that watches my show is not military. We're not making fun of actual professional development because that has a place and you can learn things and you can grow as a person and a leader. We're making fun of doing it for the sole purpose of doing it, just because you're going to use it on a performance report and it becomes this big rat race of a game where you and I were senior NCOs. So it wouldn't do me a bit of good to have professional development on my performance report. I had to actually run the professional development, which means
Yep.
I would create this whole event just for the purpose of my performance report. And then I would make a bunch of work, basically. Then I would have other NCOs that would be like the people running it. And then we would invite airmen to it and they would come in and they would be the participants. And it was just this big game, all for the purpose of a performance report.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's basically who can invent the most work, who can invent the biggest, most impactful, if they want to call it that, event, and it's just ridiculous. So,
and it's a tough game to play, like you alluded to earlier, because if you don't play the game at all, then you won't make rank enough to take care of people.
Yeah, I played the game. My most famous EPR bullet being in charge of the neighborhood watch, which I just made a map and called it a day and made a bullet out of that. But I would play the game. I would play the game to where I would just still be at work essentially to take care of people. E7 was it for me. It was in the cards and the plan from the get go. It was either 4 or 20 for me, and then if it was 20, it was E7 and nothing further. Once I started to get the sniff of what politics were involved in, that didn't really come about until probably around the time we were at Beale or left Beale, where
yeah, it started getting pretty heavy for me at Beale. I remember I had, and this is no joke, folks. Remember what I just said. The military's sole purpose is to kill people and break their shit. I had a supervisor pull me to the side and tell me that my performance report had too many deployment related bullets on it.
Yeah.
I was deployed for 9 months that year. What do you think I was doing the other 3 months? I was at home with my family on leave.
Yeah. Yeah, and they take, and that's a whole nother time suck, is the amount of time they're taking to say, oh, this is too imbalanced and we need to do this, and we had to do it, look at reports too much. It was just too much time. And I think I told you before I retired, if I can just take all of that energy from all those different tasks they make you do and all the performance reports and the politicking, and I can just do a job, I'm going to crush a job. And I'm telling you, man, I'm using about 50% of my energy for this job, and everybody's like, "Wow, this guy's the greatest thing." Oh man, he does all this. It's because I don't have to do all the crap I used to do. Oh, I got to be at the gym at a certain time, 3 times a week with the group, whether I do it on my own or not. I got to do performance reports, these volunteer events. It was like essentially everything but your job, even when you were trying to do your job.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I remember at one point in my career getting super frustrated with that, and like making a list of the expectations that the Air Force or any branch really has for you. Mm-hmm. And I mean, if you added it up, you're famous for doing this kind of thing, but I would sit there and I would add up all the tasks, and then I would assign time to them during the day. And there just is not enough time in a week to do all the things that they expect you to do.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
And I made a pie chart of why I was going to retire, but I never really broke down my time. But I did make a pie chart I sent to a buddy of mine, Mike Graw, who, it was like a pie chart of why I was retiring. I didn't think it was that funny. He thought it was hilarious. It was like, 20%, sexual assault culture where everybody touches anybody, it's a sexual assault. And if somebody slept with somebody they don't like, it's a sexual assault. And just whatever, and then
before you move on, let's clarify something, because that's another thing civilians might not understand that I don't want anybody like jumping on you about.
Oh, yeah.
We're not saying sexual assault is okay. No. What they teach in the military is that if you go to a bar, this is a real scenario that they teach. Mm-hmm. If you go to a bar, you have one beer, she has one beer, and then you proceed to take her home, and she wakes up the next morning and says, "Oh, you are ugly. I don't like that decision." That is now rape.
Mm-hmm. So, and we were even told, I don't know if you're in the same briefing I was, but we were even told that males can rape and females can at one point. And it was really catching its crescendo in like 2013 or 14.
Yeah, I remember that class. I took that class too, where they flat out told you that basically a female could not rape a man. And they also told us that I was still married at the time. You could go home, because this is something a lot of married couples do. Go home, have some drinks together, watch movies, and then, it's date night, man. Something's going to happen that night. So they told us in that class that if you did that, you were raping your wife.
Yep. Yeah, it's
they didn't say, oh, she could claim rape. They said, no, you raped your wife because she can't consent.
Yeah, I remember getting like that. And then even, it might have been the same class or the following year. I know there's 2 years where it was just getting out of hand. And I was firing off like feedback on the classes. And I think everybody else was too. And they kind of backed off of it. But there was another year where they said that you could basically be in a situation where the girl could go weeks. Like she could provide initial consent, then go weeks and say, oh, you know what? I didn't want to consent to that, or I shouldn't have consented to that. And I kind of reversed my decision after the fact. And that is rape. And it was getting ridiculous. I don't know if those types of cases were actually prosecuted at that level, but the military justice system also concerned me because it was a simple majority in the juror box. It wasn't beyond a reasonable doubt. It
Yep.
was basically, is it probable or something like that. And then it's just, I believe, a simple majority. You don't need all 12 jurors to convict. You don't have hung juries. You don't have to have a unanimous consent of jurors. So,
well, I think definitely what you're getting at too, the main part of that is it is not like a civilian court where it is beyond a reasonable doubt.
right.
It is, I'm 51% sure that you did it.
Right.
Which is ridiculous.
More reasonable than not, or more probable than not. I forget the wording.
Yeah, right. I mean, more probable than not. That's 51%.
Right. Exactly. And so you get that mix of not a majority, or only a majority of jurors, and it's dangerous, man. It's really dangerous. So that was a part of the reason I retired. Not wanting to move anymore, getting tired of trying to keep up with everything, because the military is just a series of hurdles. It was one after the other. It's 3-level, 5-level, 7-level courses, school for all of those, academies, fitness tests. Some people could cold turkey get fitness tests, but I was not one of those people. I spent 4 months out of the 6 preparing for them.
Yeah.
Or if I got a 90 by chance, it would be 10 out of the 12 months preparing for them. So it was not, I was just tired of the hurdles. I was like, I want an easier life. So
yeah, I get it, man. I don't want to be too negative on the military because I'm definitely thankful that I did it now that I'm done. And,
oh yeah, that pension rolls in. You'll be super thankful.
I had a lot of great times too, and I know you did. I know
I did.
There was good times to it. I think it's just important also that people know, especially on my channel, I Plead the First, which is a lot more political, that your votes, they make an impact on how the military does their business day to day, because leaders are appointed and they bring along their political viewpoints because they are political appointees.
Right. Yeah.
Go ahead. But I mean, a lot of times they'll bring in, whatever viewpoint. So I'm just gonna call it like it is here. During the Obama years, it was tough.
Oh yeah.
And things got way out of control, and they were using the military as a political experiment a lot of times.
Right. And they got so emboldened, and not only that, but the people with those political persuasions in the military got so emboldened. I remember the toughest time you had to go through was literally the days and weeks after Trump was inaugurated, because somebody was essentially throwing a fit about it and didn't even, I don't know if they realized or had self-realization they were throwing a fit about it, but just coincidentally timed out right with the election and inauguration of Donald Trump. And, I'm documenting everything, trying to get this person addressed. It like all spells itself out on paper, but I don't even know if they realized. I don't know if it was subconscious. But those years, you're right. I mean, I had a little bit of problems in 2003, or no, I'm sorry, 2005, which caused me to go to California because I was, basically going to be Article 15 over something I didn't even do. I was able to prove in about a matter of 5 minutes related to equipment. But then it was peaceful. I'd finally calmed myself down, and then around 2014, things really started becoming problems again. And a lot of that was because of what was constantly getting piped into the military about sexual assault, inappropriate contact, blah, blah, blah. I mean, how I hate Tom Brady, but the funniest thing I ever saw that dude do was a video that you can't find on the internet anymore, where he's walking around women are, interested in him in the workplace, but another guy that looks normal, they weren't interested in. And it was like sexual assault when that guy talked to him.
Wasn't he in his damn underwear on that video?
He walks up to this lady in his underwear and does all these things 20 times worse than the normal looking guy. And she's like, oh, stop, and it's not sexual assault with that guy. But that, when your leadership is just ingraining in you, that it's a card that you can use to get a different assignment. It's a card you can use to get somebody you don't like in trouble. Those assault accusations start flying, and it really diminishes the real issue, which is the real sexual assaults, that are going on. And now there's just so many complaints that they have to wade through the complaints, and I've had an OSI guy tell me that it really hurt.
OSI is the Office of Special Investigation.
Yeah, that. So I almost couldn't remember. I was trying to remember. But I had him tell me that it hurts cases of real victims because there's a little bit of a tilted bias there when you get so many false complaints in compared to actual complaints. So
yeah, I remember one that kind of disturbed me a little bit, and I'm going to tell the story really quickly. I was in Japan. There was a young female airman there. I was at the NCO club that night. And for all you old head military people, the NCO clubs are not like they used to be, even overseas. Anybody can go to them. So the young airmen were all in there. It was like a Friday night or something like that. They were playing music, everybody's dancing, doing that kind of stuff. And this lady, someone slapped her butt, which is completely inappropriate. And I'm not saying that it is appropriate in any way, shape, or form. But that case, instead of just taking that guy and, giving him some paperwork, telling him to knock it off, addressing it in an appropriate manner, they were treating it in the exact same way as they would treat an actual rape, which in my mind is, there may be a bunch of people that disagree with me on this. I may catch some heat for this, but I just don't think there has to be some scale of progression of discipline where slapping somebody on the butt is not the same as raping somebody. It's not.
Right. Yeah, and that's where it was just getting out of control. And we started to dial back. I started to get a little bit of hope, but I still wanted it to be done because I didn't know what was coming. And sure enough, 2020 rolled around because I had my ceremony in like February, but by the end of 2020, we're back to this an even more aggressive kind of path towards this mindset, if not worse. I mean, I can't believe the stuff I'm seeing. I mean, if you can wear a uniform, there was I think it was the E9 in charge of Space Command, wearing a uniform, talking bad about a cable news host. We would never get away with that,
No.
but because the politics aligned with the current administration, he's getting away with it scot free. And,
Right. You shouldn't be in uniform making any sort of political statement at all.
right. And attacking a private citizen's character. And I mean, it's just ridiculous what we're seeing. And I'm sure it's going to be worse. And there's some characters we both served with that one of them won't thrive from it, but another one probably going to be an E9 from it or thrive and just kind of eat up that sort of environment.
Yeah. I know people like to think that the military is our finest meritocracy, but unfortunately it has not been a meritocracy for quite some time, because you and I both had a couple guys that served underneath us, and they were hard workers. They did everything they were supposed to do. One of them in particular had made a mistake some years ago, like a lot of years ago. I mean, at this point, we're talking about 6 years ago, something like that. And he still is not getting promoted because of that event, even though for the last 5 years, the dude has been absolutely stellar. And let me be clear, I'm not going to air his dirty laundry or anything, but it was not anything like an atrocious mistake or anything. It was just that. It was just a mistake.
Right. Yeah, the knee-jerk reactions, there's just so much negative, and I will switch to positive for a second and say that, it got me out of my hometown bubble. I was able to promote. It gave me a very steady income in retirement where, I don't really, that mixed with the YouTube stuff, I don't have to work if I don't want to. There's a lot of good out of it, but there's a lot of bad peppered in. And, I was told by all the old heads that you'll forget the bad. I'm like, I don't think you guys know me. Like, I'm going to remember the bad,
I'm holding a grudge.
Yeah. I was establishing biases of myself that once I was in the civilian world, I'm like, well, you know what? Not everybody's like this, or not everybody from this gender is going to do this, or whatever the case is. So it can cause some negative biases even within yourself of things. I think the biggest one I had is that most leadership on the enlisted side was not equipped to be a leader. They're just, there are some really good leaders on the enlisted side, but I didn't. All my experiences were negative, as you know, or most of them. So I was just seeing a lot of negative.
We had some good ones, man. I mean, we had Chief Akron was really good. Chief Smith was really good.
Well, I was talking like later before, because Akron's probably on the very. Well, he was well into the political parts, but Smith, I think he got promoted back when it was just like, hey man, get your degree and do a couple things and you'll get E8 and E9. But later,
that dude was an old school chief, man.
Yeah, yeah. When it became uber political, it kind of trends towards you've got to be conniving and dishonest to get promoted. And it's kind of sad, but there's definitely some good ones. I would just, there are people that we have worked with that were very, very not smart, literally couldn't count inventories and such. That will probably somehow end up being E9s because they've got the political climate now, they've got, gender, race, and they're conniving enough and misleading enough and dishonest enough to kind of twist some things and get promoted. I just refuse to play the game.
Yeah, and I won't go too far down this road, but just for the people so they can kind of get some context, you were accused of misconduct essentially, and it was proven to be not true, but it put you through hell for several months, if not a year.
Well, let's see. It's kind of like which time, right? So the first time was just in Florida, unrelated to our time together, and it was just not tacking an equipment line or having an equipment line tacked by a fabrication shop, but I had taken it off the plane and they thought I didn't because they found another one that was broke, and I had the logs and everything to prove it. So that was dismissed in a few weeks, but it was a few weeks of hell. And then in Nebraska, there was something that lasted. I killed it pretty quickly by kind of dragging the chief, the commander into the process. So it was dead within about 2 weeks, I think. But that was inappropriate conduct based on communications with somebody. And then that came back up because a third person was trying to use it to get into my leadership position because it was kind of a gateway into promotion, and they didn't like that I didn't want to get promoted yet I wouldn't yield my position. And I'm like, this isn't musical chairs, like I'm not going to yield my position, so
right.
So they brought it back up, and I had a memorandum for record, which is just a document for everybody listening that says what happened, signed by all the leadership. And I kind of whipped that bad boy out and explained everything, and that was dead again within about a week. But when you take that first instance related to inappropriate communications to when they tried to bring it back up, that was probably about a year to 2 years. Might have even been more than that. I think it was actually 3 years. It was 14 for the first one and it's 2017 for the second one.
Yeah, it just seemed like for a long time that was like people were trying to hold that over your head, even though right from the get-go it was dismissed as frivolous, to say the least.
Well, there was three main characters that were just holding it over the head for, I think, to prevent getting in any disciplinary actions themselves, because I was still, towards the top of the food chain, and to possibly get themselves in that position. So, three main characters kind of played with each other and ended up kind of, what do you call it, dog eat dog situation, where one ended up telling on the other because they were making stuff up. But when people are disloyal to that extent, and that conniving, they end up turning on each other, and that's what they did to an extent too. So it was kind of comical looking back on it, but very much hell going through it. So
yeah, man, there was a lot of times that things were dark, and I know I was like fighting depression, and man, sometimes I just didn't want to get up and go to work because of all the drama, and all that drama existed because of the stuff that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Where it was all these avenues that I want to say they were created with the right things in mind. They just weren't put in place with much forethought of how to prevent the kind of stuff we're talking about.
Right. And just to give people perspective, those three people were out of a pool of 40 people. But, that's what we kind of remember, just because that's the amount of hell we were dragged through. And then there's a lot of times where I had to defend you, or where they would sometimes even corner me to where I couldn't defend you over stuff that was just asinine. And,
dude, do you remember? I know this is actually the time you were talking about after Trump got elected that day. So I was an instructor for a really long time, and then I got out of the instructor role, but the person that was filling the instructor role asked me to fill in for one of their classes. I went and taught the class for that person. I put all their equipment away, took care of the classroom, made sure it was all good to go. And they called you and said that I didn't put the equipment away correctly. And for the record, there was like no assigned place to like put any of that equipment. It was just a big shelf where, you could kind of put it in there nice and neat. But the person that I had trained made the claim that I didn't put it in there the way I had trained her to put it in there. So I was ruining her classroom or whatever. I don't know what her thoughts were.
Yeah.
But well, I know what her thoughts were. Her thoughts were get Mesa in trouble.
Right. Yeah. And they're in for a world of hurt when they hit the civilian world, which most of them we're talking about already have, because we had something like that the other day at work where somebody tried that crap, or my boss, vice president level of a company was like, well, fix it.
Right.
Well, yeah, but they did this. Cool. Well, fix it. Like, we don't have time to do this investigation process to figure out what went wrong, when it went wrong. Just fix it. So, and those people, they thrive on that stuff.
So much of our time was wasted on cover your ass type stuff, CYA, where you're documenting, like you were talking about earlier, all this stuff because somebody is out to cut your throat because they might gain a position or a rank if they can make you look bad. So you spend all your time like doing documentation, writing letters that are strictly there to document what's going on, sending emails, talking to other people saying, hey, man, I want to have a meeting with you and tell you that I did this just so you know what's going on in case it comes up later. Yeah. And how much time, is wasted doing that kind of stuff when it could just be spent on fixing stuff.
Yeah, it was a constant state of kind of despair or worrying about how things are going to turn out. And the higher you got up in the ladder, which is another reason why I didn't want E8 or E9, was more of that was brought to you. When you look at it from another perspective, I was number 3 in just a flight. So really not that high, but all that negative attention was brought to me. And then the captains always kind of got away with it for some reason. Nobody ever got on them because I guess they weren't our career field, but the superintendent the E8s usually were catching, and usually sometimes justified, but sometimes unjustified, catching all sorts of grief just because they were, at the top of the hill and everybody was throwing stones at them. So
Yeah.
I liked being number two because I was somewhat incognito, but man, they were after the position, I guess. So
yeah, it's hard to be the superintendent, which you were the superintendent for what, like a year?
yeah, there was chunks in between, and then I think a year total, or a year towards the end, or whatever. Or no, not
Yeah.
towards. Yeah, towards the end.
You
It
did
was
a
like,
couple times where you were like this superintendent for 6 or 8 months here or there.
yeah,
But that last one, you were the superintendent for a year.
yeah.
And then my
So,
last one, I was the superintendent for a year.
mhm,
And you're right, you're a target, man. Like everybody, which, if you follow true leadership guidelines, like, yeah, you're the leader, so everything is your responsibility, but that's not what we're really talking about. It's more like frivolous targeting just to play petty political games.
right. It was an advanced version of kindergarten, and this person stole my toy. This person didn't put my toy back right. This person, teacher said to document things this way, and this person added two thes, and it's not the same way.
Yeah, man. I know my favorite times in the military were all my deployed times because, for the most part, you got away from a lot of that kind of stuff. You were just doing the job, and you could put aside all the political crap for a while. Just think about what you were actually there to do
Mhm.
your job, go home when you got to be done with your job, go to sleep, get back up, do it again. There wasn't really anything to worry about. A couple times, I mean, sometimes I had some people that wanted to stir shit too when I was on a deployment, uh, and even caused a pretty big problem with me and a guy that I consider a good friend of mine. Almost this one particular person, she almost brought me and my friend to blows because she was telling him that I was picking on her, basically, which I was not. I was actually just doing quality assurance and
Mhm.
making sure that she was loading radios correctly, which
Mhm.
she wasn't.
Yeah,
But I got picked on about I was picking on her because I went and had quality assurance check on her. Well, that's what quality assurance does, you dumbass.
yeah. I think one of my favorite lines was, "I think you're singling me out," and it was like their get out of jail free card.
Yeah.
So, yes, I'm singling you out because you're the only idiot doing this right now. Doing this wrong. So,
You are correct. I am singling you out because you suck.
yeah, and you can't. That's all internal monologue. You can't say it, or they're like, "Ooh, I'm going to
Right.
this person." And it's just so ridiculous. And the light at the end of the tunnel is some people could do that, and that's great. It's a grind for 20 or 30 years. I was like, stretching out to reach 20, hit 20, and done. Some people do that for 30 years. That's fine. But I think I like the other side of the fence better. And all my friends that are kind of on the same thinking plane as I am were telling me, get out, just 20, go, because it's way better on this side. So,
Yeah, man, I'm glad you're enjoying it. You got a great job. Things are on the up for you. You're searching for a nice house to
yeah,
call the forever home. We don't
yeah,
have to think about all that negative stuff anymore. It's kind of funny talking about it at
yeah.
this point. This is probably the first time since I hung them up that I've talked about any of this stuff, really.
Yep.
It's kind of humorous. Um, I really, man, I know that this episode's probably going to come out like a big negative hate fest of the military, and it's 100% not meant to be that. I think it's just important that people know what's going on in their military, and it's not just a go to work, take care of business meritocracy anymore. It's a lot of political crap that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, all the way down to micro politics of a 40-person flight where, they're just trying to get up one position by making somebody look bad.
Yep.
And you remember the last story we're going to tell is this one dude that came to our flight with a felony already on the books. We told them, you specifically told them, do not send him. He came anyway because they just wanted to make their numbers from the schoolhouse. And then he proceeded to do what, like 5 DUIs?
Yeah, there was 4 or 5 DUIs, leaving the confines of base when you're restricted to base, all sorts of stuff. I know a cop had to stop me from physically putting hands on the dude. By the 4th or 5th time, I had to go to the jail on base in the middle of the night to handle him. So,
well, he wasn't a good person, man. Like, I remember being told to go ride with the first sergeant because at the time the first sergeant was a smaller female, and this guy was a bigger dude. He was probably what, 6'1"?
Yeah,
about 6'1". He was pretty stacked. He was 19 years old. I mean, athletic kid.
Yep.
And there was like serious concern, like that he might lose his stuff and start getting physical with the first sergeant.
Yeah.
So I had to go ride with her to go take him somewhere. I can't remember where, but I don't know, man. And we could, the point of telling that story was it took us, what, 8 months, 9 months to get him kicked out.
And on the reverse side, I can give you a perfect parallel to the civilian world that just happened this week. We hired somebody in early March, and the company's a little backwards in the sense that you don't get their background check back until after they're hired. But the guy, he's a young guy. He's really trying his best. He's got a scattered history, like misdemeanor stuff, just a few things. And his background check comes back, and they call me, and they're like, he's got a misdemeanor on his record. I'm like, oh, really? What is it? And they're like, oh, it's disorderly in public, and a couple other things that seemed like they were related to maybe assault, but when I dug into it, they weren't. And they're like, well, you can fire him now if you want to. Like, so what do I do? Like, we can fire him, and like, you just tell us right now, and he's gone. You send him on his way like in 5 minutes. So, and I know the military has more of a structure, and sometimes that protects you. But what I decided to do, because the guy was trying to get back on his feet, is I told him he could stay, but he was on a very, very strict probationary period, and anything. It had been like 9 months since the last ding on his record, and it wasn't like a laundry list like some people in my family had. But it was just a few things, and I said, you'll stay and we'll keep you, but man, you screw up one time and you're gone in like 5 minutes. I know the military will never be there, but they've got to work on that too. They've got a lot to work on, but I am very thankful for my experience. Getting to see the world is a big thing. You've deployed it as much, if not more, than me. Getting that breadth of experience, being able to take your kids to different states and give them some different experiences, so they're not stuck in a bubble. If all your kids ever saw was Yuba City, California, God help them.
Or what was that little town by Marysville?
Plumas Lake, or
no, right by Plumas Lake. That town was awful, right outside the gate. I can't think of it, man.
Olivehurst.
Oh, no. Yeah, no.
Wheatfield.
No. Like, you would leave the gate, you would go through that little town, then you would go to Marysville, and then Yuba City.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? I can't remember the name of the town, but they literally like drop convicts off of a bus there. Anyway, so we got to wrap it up. You have another engagement here, but I want to end on a positive note. So tell us your best experience in the military.
Yeah, I am pretty negative, so I'm going to work on that for myself. But I think my best experience in the military was working with the U2 program. Had a lot of fun learning that program. It was kind of the tip of the spear for our career field, but I joked that I would put NASA on my resume, and I did because we got to work with NASA full pressure suits and U-2 full pressure suits, and you did the same. And deploying with that aircraft that's older but has been modified and updated to be very, very useful in intelligence gathering and working with all the different lettered agencies, just doing cool stuff like that. It was probably the tip of my career. It was kind of the highlight of my career. And I had left Florida with all those with a bad experience towards the end. And my supervisor, Craig Hawley, you remember him?
Yeah, I love Craig. Craig's a great guy.
Yeah, he was my first supervisor at Beale, and he just kept telling me, "Man, just do your job and you'll be fine. You're gonna be fine." Because I was getting dinged on my performance reports a little bit, and things like that. They just kept copying and pasting the X patterns and everything in Florida. So I really kind of finally took a breath and enjoyed my career in California. And the first, I wouldn't say the first year.
Craig just retired, if you didn't know that.
Oh, did he? Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first year of Nebraska was fun too, because I think we had a good time there before it really started kind of going into what we talked about earlier. So that period of my career, probably a 5-year span, was a good one.
Yeah. So did you ever get a chance, now that we're both pretty much I'm on my way out, you're out, did you ever get a chance to sit in there and look at some of the imagery from the U-2 in Intel?
Yeah.
So technically it wasn't probably supposed to be in there, but we got to see some really cool stuff. That camera on that aircraft, we have multiple cameras, but my favorite camera was capable of looking through clouds and like from 70,000 feet could read the Surgeon General warning on a pack of cigarettes. So pretty cool stuff going on in there, like spy movie stuff. So
yep. And I got friends that tell me that no matter who we have in charge of the country, there's operations like that and related to that that'll continue and are really untouchable. So
yep. So that's a good thing to end with right there. The people can breathe a sigh of relief, because there are tons of good people in the military. There always will be. And there are those that stand in the way of the people that are trying to break things down. So
absolutely. Like I said, 37 out of that group of 40 were good folks that we dealt with. And that is A on any test. So
yep. And thank you, man, for coming on the show. Thank you for spending a large majority of your career standing in the way of asshats. I appreciate that, because it benefited me personally often, but it also benefited all the other folks in the flight as well. And it takes people like that, because you pretty much at some point early on, when you could have easily made E9, said, nah, I'm just going to stay here and stiff arm people.
Yeah, I had an old old notebook that said E7 as fast as possible, then sit. And, I made the E7 in like 11 years and just sat for darn near a decade at E7. So it was kind of fun.
Exactly.
Yep.
Man, thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it. I'll get this video up sometime tomorrow. I'll let you know when it goes up, but good to see you. We'll have to do it again. I had a good time. I think we could talk for long periods of time about all kinds of stuff, but we'll do it again.
Cool.
All right, man.
You just like edit this thing or something?
Yeah, man. I just throw it into Premiere Pro and throw it together. I don't even spend that much time editing, because you'll see Zoom actually transitions from my camera to your camera when you speak and does a lot of the editing for me. So
okay. I just didn't know when I could go back to 100% real James, and if it was like a lob off you did in the editing.
Hold on. I'll do it right now. Everybody's getting this right now, but we're going to do this. All right. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Like, share, subscribe. I appreciate all you guys. Thanks for all the support. We'll see you next time.
Yeah. Everybody smoking all the greenery. Yeah. Close the match 'cause they were handed down to me. But I'm still fly, I know. I'm still fly, let's go.